Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here and to be able to speak to you this morning. It's my first time in India, so a real pleasure to be here. So this lecture is called Building to Heal, so I'll get started. Want a job? Go to college and don't major in architecture. This is a quote from a recent 2012 New York Times article, which speaks to the idea that architecture in the West, and particularly in the United States, has really lost its social capital. It's become a luxury item really for the wealthiest of people. And as such, the profession is struggling a bit financially. The article goes on to say that architecture majors have just surpassed English literature graduates as the most likely to come out of school unemployed. So as a recent architecture grad myself, several colleagues and I started Mass Design Group in 2007 to really ask a different question. We wanted to say, what would happen if architecture wasn't a luxury item? What if good design was really available to everyone in the world? What value would that bring? Let me step back 1 second. This is a hospital in Tugela Ferry, South Africa, where in 2005 there was an outbreak of extremely drug-resistant tuberculosis, or XDR-TB. Of the 53 cases that were documented at the hospital, there were no survivors. All 53 patients died. But they didn't come to the hospital with this disease. They might have come with a broken arm, or to get stitches, or to give birth. They contracted this disease while at the hospital. So actually, it was a visit to the hospital that killed these patients. And you might ask, why is this? Well, the hospital wasn't designed for airborne infection control. This was said by the director of the hospital himself. And if you look at this picture, what you'll see is many people waiting in a dark, crowded, unventilated hallway. This is a space where disease transmission runs rampant. And they're waiting there because the building wasn't designed to have adequate waiting space. So it was actually poor design that was killing these people. And we at Mass started asking, why is this? Why are these buildings so poorly designed? Or why do they seem to lack any design at all? And what we found was that 70% of the world's architects and planners are in the quote-unquote developed world, sorry for the term, while 70% of the projects are in the developing world. If we look at the continent of Africa alone, it has 35,000 architects. The tiny country of Italy has 120,000 architects. So, there's a real disconnect between where the architects are and where the projects are happening. And this can have profound consequences, whether it's the Tugela Ferry Hospital example I showed, or more recently, if you look at any city that's been hit by an earthquake recently, or you think of a Bangladesh textile factory, the buildings are hurting us. So let me quickly introduce you to Dr. Paul Farmer. We met Paul back in 2007 after attending a lecture of his at the Harvard School of Public Health. Paul is the head of Partners in Health, which is an international NGO providing health care in many countries all around the world. And at the lecture, we were really struck by the fact that in addition to talking about building hospitals and health centers and clinics, Paul was talking about building housing, roads, and schools to support these facilities. He was really talking about building infrastructure. One of my colleagues, Michael Murphy, went up to him after the lecture, was really inspired by the talk and wanted to get involved and asked Paul, what architects are you working with to build all this infrastructure? And Paul said, we don't use architects. I draw things on a napkin and they get built, And we came away from that thinking, this is a real missed opportunity. We're just in the school next door and we're learning all this stuff and we feel like we have something to offer. So we stayed persistent, kept in touch with Paul, did work on the side, and finally about a year and a half later, he came back to us and said, would you like to design a hospital? And we said, sure, we don't know how to design a hospital, but of course, let's do it. So the hospital that we started working on, you can see, is in the north of Rwanda in the Barera district. It was the last district of the country to receive a district hospital. And in part funded by the Clinton Foundation, Paul really pushed us to think hard about, if buildings are making us sick, can they also make us better? He sort of challenged us to try to solve this question. So here you can see a picture of the site when we got to Rwanda in 2007. This is a picture of the hospital today. And so we thought, how do we design a hospital to make us healthy? And we thought, well, if people are getting sick waiting in hallways, why don't we make a hospital that has no hallways? So you can see here in this plan and also in this aerial image that the hospital is really a cluster of buildings centered around a main courtyard. So all circulation happens on the exterior of the building under covered walkways. And people wait in covered waiting spaces outside of the building to really have ultimate air mixing just from the natural breeze to prevent disease transmission. And then we asked the question, when we do have people clustered together in a ward, how do we also prevent transmission there? And this was really, the answer came out of using redundant systems. So in addition to having large operable windows that allowed for ventilation and louvers that were always in place to allow venting in the upper register of the room, we used large industrial fans to mix the air slowly in the room, to pass it through UVGI lights or ultraviolet germicidal irradiation, which actually kills the disease. And then again, you have patients circulating on the exterior. So if one system fails, there's always a backup system in place to prevent the transmission of disease. We also thought about, how do we maximize the patient experience? And again, just a simple move of inverting the typical structure of a ward. So rather than having beds on the perimeter of the building facing in, we move them to be aligned along a central wall facing out at the large windows and at the landscape. This was important because it both gave the patients a better sense of privacy, but also a direct connection to the beautiful Rwandan landscape outside. This is a landscape that is very beautiful, and through the beauty, really brought dignity to this hospital, which was critical to us. So this landscape functioned not only as a waiting space and circulation space, but really as a dignifying factor in the hospital. I'll play sorry about the audio.
icyo nacyo kigashimisha ni nziza cyane kandi ndabirashimishije.
Beauty is important per se, but beauty that provides you with dignity. Beauty that, what we call in French, transcend, pull out of you the best thing you have for yourself and for giving to the world.
Everybody desires beauty. At the time we see something and we like it, when it's beautiful, the way we see things may change. And I saw how the patients and other people in the region treat the hospital. They remove their shoes when they're going to enter the wards. It's like entering their own houses. It's beautiful.
So in addition to creating a functional hospital and one that we hope is dignified with beauty, we wanted to keep asking this question of how do we use this building to improve people's lives? And we realized that one way to do that was through the building process. This is a photo of the excavation of the foundation for the hospital. And I think you'll notice that there's no heavy machinery in the photo. And that was a conscious decision for us, an intentional choice, because what we realized was by not hiring an expensive piece of machinery for the capital and driving it up a treacherous 4-hour road to the site, we could actually do this work with the local community for less cost and less time than the traditional method. And we did this using, we required half of the laborers to be women, which was fairly uncommon at the time, but we felt the most equitable way to distribute the work. And by the end of this process, we employed over 1,000 people just to do the excavation work, and over 4,000 by the end of the project. So everyone had a hand in the construction, and through that, some ownership of the project. I want to show you quickly what we're calling phase 2 of the project, which is actually doctors' housing, which we finished about a year ago. And I think this is a really important project to us because it expanded the impact of this project in a new way by bringing, the best and brightest international doctors to the site to work alongside Rwandan doctors to do training, to teach new skills and procedures that had never been done before in the country. For us, it was a way to continue the research that we had started in the first phase of the hospital with craftsmen and artisans, and really to take customization to a new level. So this is a photo of the furniture atelier that is on site and continues running today. So this is an interior of some of the houses. And from what you can see here, every door, every window, every lighting fixture was done on site, was designed and custom made by these artisans, as well as the wood trusses here and the lighting fixtures, the tables and the chairs here in these photos. It's a shot of the exterior and another one. So we finished 4 of these houses so far. They're both duplexes, and they're filled with both resident staff and international visitors. It was also a chance for us to continue our relationship with the Masons at the hospital, who have been doing work not just on this project, but also on many other projects throughout the region.
aho buri twubakaga ibyondo umucanga aya hariya ntabwo twiyo tuyubakisha nyara twayubakishije gusa kuri masi hariya.
In a lot of our designs we'll be using materials that people are usually using but in different ways, pushing for innovative ways of construction. So how do we give more value to materials that are usually considered as worthless?
ikintu kinshimisha ndi hano ko abantu tuba duhura bakavuga ngo nakoze ibintu byiza hano iri haya makoro.
Everything that we used before was something that has to be imported. It's like steel, the cement, the glass, but we can do something very beautiful that is originally Rwandan. So the way these stones has transformed the whole region, the image of Rwanda, the image of architecture of Rwanda, for me it's something very beautiful.
This is a typical stone wall in Rwanda, and as you can see, the stone is hard to see, actually. You can see more concrete than stone. And when we started this project, we thought, how can we change that? How can we invert that system to really make this local stone, local volcanic stone, the thing that you see in the centerpiece of the construction, and really conceal the mortar as much as possible. So that was the goal of this. When we started the hospital, we hired a team of masons to try to achieve this result, this jigsaw-like puzzle with very exact cuts, things fitting together very carefully. And at first, it took many iterations, and they started actually on this corner of the hospital that you can see on the right. They sort of worked around the hospital, getting better as they went. And actually, when they finished that first building, they had gotten so good at their skill and so much better than the first wall that they put up. They asked us if they could tear it down and redo it. We said, yeah, you can do it, but please do it quickly. We were fighting the schedule at that time. So, this was a real skill that was developed. And you can see Hakiza here, who was in the video. This is him working on the original hospital. And then he did get to build his house. So that's still under construction now. So resource limitation, we think, can and must equal resourcefulness. This is the last project I'm going to show you, which is the third phase of the hospital, which we just finished a few months ago. It just opened. It's a cancer center. And this project is, to us, very important because not only is it kind of a culmination of all of the skills developed that I just talked about. But it's really it's an expansion of the hospital that we never could have foreseen. This is the first cancer center in Rwanda, and the first place that any Rwandans with cancer could go in country to be treated. So, it's really, the impact of this hospital continues to grow beyond our wildest imaginations. Just a few photos of what this building looks like. So these are the 3 phases of the project that I just showed. And we already know there's the original hospital, the doctor's housing that you can see in the bottom right, and the ambulatory cancer center. We now know of 3 more phases which are going to continue and start next year. They include an ambulatory care center, an expansion of the residential hill with many more houses, and an admin block extension that houses facilities for a local university. So this is really becoming an international center for health, but more importantly, a new community.
Actually about rethinking the building itself as an opportunity to protect and inspire the imagination of a community to something better.
This hospital was for the people, and the fact that they sweat to make it, they own it far more than if we were just giving them a key.
What we're trying to encourage people through our projects is we're not bringing things to give you. We have things to trade, but we want the skills you have. We want the dreams you have. We want the passion you have.
There's this catalytic effect. As finished, many of them have the skills to go and start their own business or find another construction project. You've now got a place where middle-class professionals are moving to, and so suddenly you got this recipe, and when it all comes together, you see massive economic development.
It's something which is important to see everyone involved. And the more we get involved, the more we make those bonds and the more we live in harmony.
I would like to see these masons going to Congo and build these beautiful walls there. And I would like to see Congolese carpenters come to Rwanda. We've been constantly asking ourselves, is this all that architecture can do, or can it do more? The question to myself and to every other architect is, how can we use architecture to contribute to peace?
So in sum, I can't seem to quite get this back on the last slide, but that's okay. We at Mass feel strongly that a building can either help or it can hurt, and we're really doing everything we can to make buildings that help and that heal not only individuals, but heal communities. And we hope, at the end of the day, promote peace, as Commode said. So if design can promote peace, is design just about buildings? We would say it isn't. And it's really imperative that we design buildings that heal, because if we don't, the results can be catastrophic. This is a picture from Haiti after the earthquake, where I spent the better part of the last 2 years, actually, where the failure of the built environment killed nearly 300,000 people. So I'll just end with another quote from Paul Farmer. The question is not what is the cost of architecture, but what is the cost of not having architecture. So thank you very much.